by Josh Zimmerman. He's a colleague in the iSchool, and he's going to speak to us about American Archivists Articulating Archives Across Ages, a work in progress mini case study of SAA presidential addresses.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, like Pat said, I'm Josh Zimmerman. I'm a lecturer in the MARA program and an archivist and records manager at the Catholic Archdiocese of Seattle. The title of my talk today is American Archivists Articulating Archives Across the Ages, a work in progress in mini case study of SAA presidential addresses. Aside from the annoyingly alliterative title, I wanted to present some of the early work on a content analysis project that will hopefully form part of an upcoming MARA course tentatively entitled The Professional Image of Archivists and Archives in Popular Culture. So just as there are themes that arise when archivists and archives are invoked in popular culture, I wanted to find out what terms we as archivists have used to talk about archives and archivists. So I wanted to present any potential changes over time in a sort of visually meaningful way, and hopefully I achieved that. So my source for this project is 74 years of the Society of American Archivists presidential addresses. These addresses are remarks given by the president at the annual meeting, and then they're then published in the American Archivist, the Society's journal. These addresses have been digitized in PDF, and luckily SAA has posted the links to all of these articles on one page. I chose these addresses because I feel that these are the most concise conception of the value of archives and archivists in the profession. And since they date back to 1939, around when the society was founded, they also serve as a great corpus to do this type of long-range content analysis. So how did I approach this data? So I divided it into the 74-year time period into 20-year increments. As you can see, I added another year at the beginning to round things out. I also removed the header and footer information from each page. So if I included that, it would have severely skewed all of the results, as every other page contained the words American Archivist or the title of that particular address. I didn't, however, remove the footnotes. This probably accounts for the prominence of American in the American Archivist, the journal, in the results. Next, I focused only on words and not phrases. That means I didn't do any formal coding, so therefore it's a content analysis, but it's not an in-depth one. And so finally, to create the word cloud, I used WordItOut's default omissions list, which includes words such as a, also, am, and, are. And so among countless others, probably 80 or 50 or so. So for tools, I use QDA MinerLite to import the PDF articles from SAA's website and to clean up all the data, which is the real time-consuming part of this project. Then using QDA MinerLite, I exported all the PDF files to text files. Then I found a Windows command line script that took all the texts in a given folder and combined them into one large text file for each era. And then I pasted these into the WordItOut for the word cloud visualizations and something called write words for the actual word counts. So here's my warning slide. I wanted to present some warnings before I go on. So as the title suggests, this is a work in progress. I've only really had a couple weeks to really think about all of this stuff, and I wanted to get something out for this conference. Also, as a lecturer for a research methods course, I feel it's my duty to offer another warning regarding the data. I looked at data from just one country, the United States, one professional organization, SAA, and even more one subset of that literature in that organization, i.e. the presidential addresses. So extrapolating beyond the country and this particular professional agency is extremely hard to do, and but taking all these limitations of the scope and the data into Oop, skipped ahead one. There, it's still on there. I do offer a few conclusions, albeit tentatively, at the very end. And finally, there are a few slides that are pretty busy, and I know that it's against all of the rules of good presentation design and etiquette, but I wanted to give folks the opportunity to go back and check out the slides if they're interested. There we go. There were a few distinct data challenges that I encountered in this project. The first was QDA minor light really turned a few of the addresses from the 2000 to 2013 period into unreadable messes by adding an extra space after each letter. So if I take this any further, I'll need to go back and maybe get a better OCR, or maybe change the fonts, or just kind of roll up my sleeves and do a ton of manual cleanup. Another challenge was that my data were missing two addresses from 1969 and 1985. I guess SAA didn't digitize them, or maybe they weren't published in the first place. I'm not sure about that. Finally, given my time limitations and the time intensiveness of phrase coding, I wasn't able to go beyond the simple sort of word crunching, and words don't always reveal the context as much as phrases would have. So, as I mentioned, these slides are really busy, as you can see. So I thought I'd break down how I visualize this. You can see the time period in the top left. It's pretty easy, followed by the total words during that period. Then the word cloud, the worded out word cloud below with weighted words, which, despite the omissions list, still includes some extremely common and unhelpful words such as more, only, now, and about. On the right side, you can see some selected terms and their occurrence rates. These are totals from right words. It's just sort of a word count tool. I've deleted some of the more common ones that I found in there, and some that were included in the worded out cloud. You can also see some of the red text that I've further selected for attention. So diving into this sort of era, or I call it the era of presidential discourse. The profession, at least in the United States, was still in its infancy, and SAA was founded in 1936. So this is for the first time period, and this is the war and post-war period. So you can see the word war is pretty prominent and prevalent in the word count. And as the term government attests, many archivists worked for state or federal governments at the time. You can see the term records beats out even archives and archivists by a large margin in this period. The period, 1960 to 1980, this period saw sort of my favorite, Gerald Ham's Archival Edge article or presidential address that sort of challenged the white male rich, so the pioneer version of archives that was really popular at the time. It's also the rise of university archives and special collections, witnessed by the appearance of the term university in the corpus. Additionally, the National Association of Government Archives and Records Administrators, NAGARA for short, was formed in 1974 to address these government archives and archivists at the state and local federal level. This may have been the reason for government's sort of drop in occurrence. So a lot of people were moving over there. They were dissatisfied. And the next slide, the 80s and 90s. Or 80s through 2000s, sorry. We see the growth of the terms like information, which coincides with the appearance of rebranded library schools as iSchools. The term electronic makes its appearance at the top of the list. In the top of the list, education also makes an appearance as more archives degree programs sprout up, and the profession really starts to reflect on how we educate new archivists. And the final period, during the opening decade and a half of the 21st century, we see terms like information that gets even more popular, and the term digital appears prominently, as does diversity. So it it broadly reflects that rise of digital preservation in the profession and some of the diversity efforts that were undertaken by some of the past presidents. This is also the era that archivists discovered sort of the quote-unquote power that they wield over the past, and you can see power sort of becomes more popular as well. And so, sort of to conclude, as I write tentatively, all of this stuff clearly needs some more work, the data and the analysis, but it's pretty clear that, as the totals per era attest, presidents were writing more. SAA presidents were writing more. There's more words. So we see in the 74 years, we witnessed an increase from around 80,000 to over 110,000. I think this represents sort of an increased professionalization from the early years to now, as we sort of take more time to reflect on the profession. And just as the organizational priorities shift from president to president, they also shift from era to era. They reflect, generally, cultural changes and shifts that are happening inside and outside of the profession. This is witnessed in the popularity of, recapping, war and government in the first era, university in the second and the third, and the rise of information, digital, electronic, diversity terms in the fourth era. One big surprise for me was the continued importance and appearance of the term records, which seems to have diminished, slightly in popularity over the years, but nevertheless sort of continues to play a huge and vital role in the presidential addresses. I think the total is like 2,147 words total. I would have expected maybe more of a drop-off in the later two eras as we sort of move to sort of information and we move to other things, but it continued to play a big role. So some of my next steps, possible next steps, QDA Monitor Lite's pretty robust, and it's way more robust than what I used it for this sort of mini project. I could use its full functionality, sort of do some further refinement and manually code some of these phrases of value. And I could also try to separate the citations and sort of clean it up and get a more accurate corpus to work with. Do some more cleanup, maybe to reuse this project not only for the popular culture archives sort of imagery course, but also from my research course, is using it as sort of an example of content analysis. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So thank you for listening.